All right, guys, got some very exciting products from my man Max over at Vector Athletics, who I've covered many of his products in the past. I'll link some past videos down below in the description box if you guys are curious. He's coming at you with a 1-2 punch on not just one, not two, but 3 brand new products that are very cool that I'm gonna cover in one video. Each of these could have their own separate video. I'm gonna try and be as concise as I can, not make this super long, but I'll be going over and reviewing his silicone-based loop style resistance bands, his fabric loop style resistance bands, and this new 8 figure 8 kind of universal strap that he's also selling that is very cool in its own right. I will go over all the general pros and cons of each product, compare them to traditional latex 41-inch style bands and the distinct differences between that. I'll talk about my personal favorite between all these products and discuss, honestly, at the end of the day, if these are even gonna be worth your consideration or picking them up, especially if you already have an array of bands like I already have at this point in time. If you do want to save anything at Vector Athletics, he gives me a great generous discount code, which is one of his highest, which is 20% off anything at vectorathletics.fit. Just use the promo code Mike20 to save money on that. Very least though, guys, if you like this content, want to see more stuff like this, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Okay, first getting into these silicone bands, which according to Max are really one of a kind in the sense that, and same thing with these fabric ones in a second, in that they do make silicone resistance bands, but they generally do not make them for 41-inch style bands. They traditionally had them for things in like rehabilitation, for those super thin ones that go wrap around your thighs. So this is very cool. Now, if you're considering what would be the pull or rationale for even picking up silicone versus most resistance bands, a lot of you guys know this, are made out of latex. And I will say, I made whole videos talking about this. I'll link them down below. Not all latex bands are the same. Generally, latex bands, especially molded ones, are very, very cheap and expensive. But the way they are cured, if they're layered, they can become a lot more expensive because the longevity, the way they're kind of made, the stiffness of them. So a lot of differences there, and they still have their unique benefits, of course, over these, which I'll get into. But silicone, specifically, one of the biggest things they have going for it is that they are very comfortable in your hand and hypoallergenic. So they have more of a gradual resistance curve. This is the thickest one and is still not that hard. As you kind of pull on this, it's not, you know, hard, and they get super aggressive like a latex. Depends on the quality, because actually I sometimes do like a cheaper latex band because they are a little bit easier or just a different kind of resistance. These just have more of a gradual tension that I think would feel really good and beneficial to people that want a band, say, that isn't as aggressive, maybe if you're using it for rehabilitation or you're not looking to go super heavy, which a lot of times I don't. A lot of the bands that I have, even though I have super heavy ones, nowadays for like things like chest press, deadlifts, even squats, I'm pretty much have been going back to resistance bands. And I've said from like the beginning that this is my favorite kind of distance or length all-purpose band. When I'm using bands, things like single joint stuff, curls, bent over rows, even shoulders, I kind of like a latex band like this setting. But with these silicone ones that they made, even the hardest and lightest one have a certain level of pliability that is very forgiving and just feels super smooth, that is different to a latex band. So that might be one rationale we might consider picking these up. They have a rounded edge, whereas latex always has kind of a squared cut and edge to all theirs. This rounding edge further kind of makes it much more comfortable in your hand. You probably noticed this too. I generally don't use gloves. I've kind of talked about them. I generally also use a lot of bars, but I will just grab a latex band and use them. They can kind of pinch your skin. You know, not as forgiving as this silicone that feels very nice in your hand, does not pinch. Even for things where you're putting it over your back, much more comfortable compared to a latex band. Silicone is hypoallergenic, so if you're allergic to latex, this is gonna be a godsend and gonna be kind of your go-to band probably right away. They are not cheap though. These are $69.99 before any kind of a promo code, so that should consider something, but latex bands sometimes can fall in that market anyways. The silicone bands are also chemically inert, so they're less likely to degrade with the elements over time versus latex. You leave it out in the sun or extreme cold, they can eventually degrade over time. I usually don't have that issue too much as long as you keep them kind of indoors, but I've been outside in extreme heat, extreme cold, and they definitely can wear a little bit, so it doesn't really extend the life too much of the bands versus these. None of that stuff really applies too much. I can't comment too much on, you know, how this thing will hold up over time. Max has said these things are just as stable, if not maybe sometimes more so compared to latex with some aspects of it, in the sense that if you get any kind of a cut or nick, especially on the side of a latex band, it can kind of fray and chip on you or just snap on you right away. This won't necessarily have that. What I did notice, and I'll show you guys a close-up, it was on this band, and I was kind of just standing on these on just my pavement here, my garage floor, or even going outside, There was one little hole that I found on mine. Just by stepping on a rock, it kind of just depressed into the band that I don't think otherwise would have happened with a latex band. But here it is, just a little indent that seemed to come on really easy after literally my first day using it, where I don't think a latex band and how dense this is would have really caused that. So to me, that just says a little warning sign. If you're gonna use these, I would be a little careful on kind of pavement, any kind of rocks. I would stick to carpet, stall mats or something like that. Just be mindful of that, because that happened literally day one. So I would just caution you guys about that. Then moving on to these fabric bands, which are to me, a kind of a sleeper hit, because when he was first telling me about making these two products a while back, I'll be honest, I wasn't super excited about them. So I'm like, how many bands do we really need? Not only that, you're making two bands that seem to kind of compete with each other in the sense that they're both very comfortable. That's kind of one of the big selling points of both of them. This one took me by kind of a pleasant surprise, and just the way it feels, it is very unique. These are the only fabric-based bands, again, according to Max, the owner, that are out there right now, that are 41-inch loop-style bands, which are my personal favorite. A lot of you guys know that. You can see the unboxing and what they look like up close. I love his subtle choice of just adding his logo with the different kind of colored patch on each one. That's a nice touch versus having different colors with each of them. It does come in this little nice bag, which I think he does sell separately, but I believe what he told me in email was that on each of the orders, at least initially on some of these, he's gonna be including that bag for free, which is nice because these things are not cheap. These are $99. That's, again, before any kind of discount code. But I will say, like, you're kind of paying for something that is fairly unique. Now, they are not super strong, just like the silicone bands. I'd actually say these things are weaker than the silicone bands. I did throw them in a barbell with my collar hooks, and they are very easy. With that being said, I think they are unique enough and feel good enough that warrant them possibly in consideration to pick up to add in some variety. These ones surprised me because I thought I would like these more than these after I gave them initial stretch. I'm like, oh, there's not much to them. They do stretch 3 times the resting length, and there is a giving point eventually with fabric bands, but I think with what you're working with, you're gonna be fine and how much you can actually, functionally stretch them. Given that they are not the strongest bands, what I like about them, this might be my own personal preference when I use bands, and of course you can stack them and make it harder, is that I like to kind of grab the bands and just do a variety of things with a lighter load. I said before at the start, anything really super heavy, I don't do that much anymore. Pretty much stick to the free weights for that. The silicone, this is also kind of a comment with the silicone, likes to kind of slide on my hands for things I was using them for. So if you're like kind of sweaty or hot in humid climates, they're not as hard to hold on to versus these kind of give me that old school martial arts feel when I was using things like this and straps for training and grabbing onto, martial arts skis and stuff like that. I love the way this feels in your hand for a grip. So you're less likely to kind of slip out of your hand, even if you are, say, in humid climates, you're getting sweaty or something like that, you'll still have a nice solid grip and kind of holding onto them. And it goes without saying, if I didn't say it, super comfortable in your hand, minimal to no abrasion on that. Given that they're fabric, you might be thinking, well, they're gonna get dirty pretty fast and attract bacteria. The other great thing about this is that you actually can throw them in the wash machine on a delicate cycle and then just tumble dry them on low or air dry them, which Max has said he's done many times and his are still holding up totally fine. So that's a great, easy way to just kind of clean these fabric-based bands. They also, one of the benefits is they can fold up, even easier than a standard loop style latex band, which I don't think I actually said this yet, but there's actually latex in this fabric. So there's latex and then a fabric kind of covering, which was another concern and question in my mind to Max was that, are these things gonna kind of hold up? Will they be pilling and kind of wear and tear over time? He said actually they have a longer duration in some ways with latex. They preserve the life of the bands. You might see some pilling, especially if you're going out in pavement, maybe try to avoid that. But otherwise, there'll be some pilling, but they actually preserve the life of the bands. They actually have a decent lifespan. They're not gonna last forever, just like any bands, they're eventually kind of degrade over time. The other thing it's got going for it is the safety factor. Since they are covered in fabric, you're not gonna have any kind of abrupt, catastrophic failure where these things are gonna snap, hit you in the face. Those are probably another huge selling point for a lot of people. So that is these things. I like these things a lot. And then last, but certainly not least, are these 8Slings. Super versatile in their own right, outside of just using it for resistance bands. If these look familiar, they look like stuff you would see in powerlifting for like deadlifting type straps, these figure 8 straps. What Max did, which is just a great, ingenious idea in my opinion, he just extended this out a little bit and realized that, yeah, you could use these very functionally for bands. Probably not these, because you want some probably heavier, but probably still could. But just kind of doing things like rows, pulls, curls, just as a handle to hold on to. These are reinforced cotton, so he made them a little bit longer, reinforced the stitching in the middle here. Of course, he's got his logo. It looks really nice. I love the way these things look. More importantly, kind of how they feel. I could see myself using these things for a lot of functions, but primarily if I'm using them for bands, I would probably just loop it around like this and just use them. Max did send me some shots of how you can loop the band around various positions. Say for your ankle for kickbacks, I tried that a little bit. Or of course you can go into something like this for like a neutral grip, for press downs or curls or whatever, so that feels pretty cool. And finally, he told me these things actually have a 400-pound weight capacity. So again, further increasing their use and effectiveness for not just bands, but say you want to use these things, say with free weights for a variety of uses. Really cool product that I think Max initially told me he was going to sell these as part of a bundle with some other stuff. And I said, these are cool enough in their own right. You got to sell these separately. So not taking all the credit for that, but I'm just putting that out there. These things are very, very cool. So some summary thoughts about these products. As I said earlier, honestly, I was not too enthusiastic initially, probably because I got some band overload through all the bands that I've had and reviewed and covered. Do we really need another band on the market? And I'm proven wrong here, because once I kind of got these and started playing around with them, I could see right away that, especially knowing these are the only silicone, at least I'm concerned, one of the very few silicone loop style bands and the only fabric-based bands, this gives you guys further options. Also, considering the crowd I'm talking to, that a lot of you guys are resistance bands enthusiasts, so it kind of makes sense if you're really into this system of resistance bands. It is very cool now to see some other options. And I can only imagine now this is going to open the doors up for other companies to kind of follow suit in making more unique products. So I definitely applaud Max and what he's doing and putting out some new great products, especially now 3 kind of at one time that I think are very cool in their own right. Personally, which one would I gravitate towards? I still definitely do love the hard, more aggressive resistance of a latex band. With that being said, I use a lot of lighter bands, and given this color scheme, I might be gravitating towards this a little more so. But I'd say this is more for a demographic who likes that kind of a subtle, more gradual resistance. If you like all those benefits I said about silicone, that might make you consider picking these up in addition or exclusive to your type of band training, and say like your daily driver loop style bands. I don't know for sure, but my own personal opinion is I don't think these would have as long of a life compared to a good quality latex band. That's my personal opinion on that. And then to the fabric bands, these honestly were the sleeper hit to me personally. Once I picked them up and started using them, this is probably my favorite product of all the things they put out there. I like just how they feel. I love the comfort in your hand. I like there's something different. We've yet to kind of see these before, and because for my personal uses, I'm not going crazy heavy with the bands, I'll kind of save that for the free weights. I kind of like the overall resistance curve and how these feel. I think a lot of people, especially people that are maybe older, are not looking to get that aggressive with the resistance band training. This would be the thing you'd kind of recommend to someone like that. It's gonna be much more comfortable in your hands if they don't want to, say, start using gloves or say a barbell or something like that. And then again, last but not least, super versatile tool. You just got to think if you're actually going to be using these things. I like having these things around. I do like that they're cotton. The more you use them, the more you're going to kind of break them in and get more of a comfortable feel. But might not be worth it if you're just simply not going to use it. That's my honest thoughts on the matter, guys. If you got any questions, comments, feedback, definitely let me know. Again, if you want to save anything on Vector Athletics, use the code Mike20, saves you 20% off. Anything changes or any updates, I will pin a comment down below. Say if one of these bands snaps on me or something happens through more use, I will definitely keep you guys updated if you're watching us on a later date. At the very least, guys, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing as always, and I will see you on the next video.